Hi, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode like today's episode with Jesse Newell. Jesse, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good. Just covers the Chiefs for the Athletic. How long have you been covering the Chiefs now for the Athletic, Jesse?
This is my fourth year covering them. So, I started covering them 3 seasons ago. Thought maybe I'll cover a Super Bowl one day, and they've gone to three straight. So, yeah, it's been quite a ride here on Kansas City.
It's one of the incredible things I think about Patrick Mahomes, at least from afar, is every year they're winning divisions, they're going to Super Bowls. They're coming back and they're getting the first place schedule the following year. They're doing all the primetime games they can get. And to be able to have kept the energy the same seemingly the whole time feels all but unrealistic. And yet he makes it look easy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different things you can look at with that as well, which is, a lot of these seasons they're playing 3 or 4 extra games per
Right.
season too, which you would think would wear on a team, and yet you go into last week for the Chiefs, and they had to be the healthiest team in the NFL going into it, which again makes no sense on the surface of what you're looking at. But you're right. The other thing that you get into when you're the Chiefs is every game is the Super Bowl for the other team, if that makes
Right.
any sense. Like when Washington's playing the Chiefs, like that's their proving ground is, hey, the Chiefs have been up atop the NFL for so long, so you want to go prove yourself against the best. And so to your point, that does happen with the Chiefs, which is every week, if you're just a little bit flat, the other team is not. And so the fact that Andy Reid and his coaching staff continually get these guys prepared, ready to go, and then emotionally up 4 games, I think that is something that probably goes a little bit underrated throughout these seasons, just because, yeah, the Chiefs have become sort of America's team. I know their goal is like the world's team as well, but that sort of thing and making sure that you can raise your level to that of the opponent, which is coming in fired up every week, that's something to deal with every week as well.
It certainly shows through the quarterback, but also another man that has to do that has been doing it for a long time is the head coach, Andy Reid. I mean, it's amazing to think that his second stint here with the Chiefs after he left the Eagles will have been longer, more productive, and obviously more winning than the previous stop. And I'm sure people thought, hey, if we could just get Eagles Andy Reid, that'd be great. You've gotten some other alien version of whatever that was.
Yeah, and I mean, it was good before Patrick Mahomes got here, but obviously it's been a different level since Patrick Mahomes was drafted. And that marriage, I mean, everybody tries to sort of break down, what would Patrick Mahomes be without Andy Reid? What would Andy Reid be without Patrick Mahomes? And it just doesn't matter at this point, because what the Chiefs have rolling right now is that perfect mesh of guys that understand each other, respect each other, and now sort of have this collaboration that you see every week, week in, week out. And I say all this fully knowing the Chiefs are 4-3 this year. Like, this is a position they're not used to being in at 4-3. They lost some close games this year that they weren't a season ago. But I mean, all trajectories you're looking at with the Chiefs right now is that they are one of the best teams in the NFL. They're raising up the level to potentially be one of the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl come February again. And so, yeah, this thing is headed in the right direction. And now that the Chiefs are getting some of their playmakers back and getting back a guy like Rashee Rice from suspension, this offense is starting to take shape and look a little bit like Mahomes' first season as a starter, and that really is sort of scary news for the rest of the NFL.
It's interesting you say that because that was what I was going to bring up next. It feels like they have been working on this particular offense maybe since they got rid of Tyreek Hill. That this is the kind of explosion they've been looking for. The last couple of years, it feels like, again from the outside, that it was Mahomes and Kelsey and some guys trying to figure it all out, and Mahomes just got the ball where it needed to go. This year, they've got elite speed all over the field, including the rookie who I was a huge fan of, and you're starting to actually see them getting a little bit more involved. It's hard to pick who you're going to stop with all those weapons, right?
Yeah, I mean, Rashee Rice coming back from his 6-game NFL suspension. Honestly, Washington got a little bit unlucky here. You wanted to face the Chiefs the first 6 weeks, and now that he's back, he only what's crazy, they've always considered him their wide receiver one. They just love what he does in this building. He's great with yards after catch. He's great running through contact, routes over the middle, that sort of physicality that you have when you take those passes. But they've always considered him really, amazing at that. They've always considered him the wide receiver one. And now they've got him back, and you add to these other options as well. You talk about Hollywood Brown, who has some speed. Tyquan Thornton showed out for them early in the season, and then Xavier Worthy, their first round pick from last year. All these things mean the Chiefs always have been really good at yards after catch. But what Andy Reid does so well with his offense is they not only make you guard, vertically. Now they can push guys down the field and make sure that your safety is respecting them. But now it's horizontally as well. So you got fast guys on the outside, you got fast guys on the perimeter. They can throw outside the numbers if you need to. But now that's opening up the middle of the field. And you've also seen a little bit of a rejuvenated Travis Kelce this season. He lost some weight coming into training camp this year, got himself in great shape. And an interesting stat, last year during the entire regular season, he had 3 missed tackles forced, according to Pro Football Focus. In the Lions game alone, he had 4. So you're seeing a guy with a little bit more wiggle at age 36 than he had a season ago. And again, taking advantage of all these weapons the Chiefs now have. And it looked rough at the beginning of the year when they were missing guys like Hollywood and, Xavier Worthy and obviously Rashee Rice. But now that all those guys have come back, it really has been something to watch this last couple of weeks. And somewhat reminiscent to 2018 when Patrick Mahomes took the NFL world by storm.
When they have everything clicking, what is it that they want to achieve? What is it that they're trying to do on offense?
Well, I want to give Mahomes credit too. He throws it to a bunch of guys. Like last week, they threw it to 9 different guys. Now, I say that fully knowing like they were trying to get Rashee Rice going. Rashee Rice only ran 16 routes according to Next Gen Stats last week, and he had 10 targets. So if that's any indication of how much they love, Patrick Mahomes loves, how much he's on the same page with Rashee Rice, that lets you know. I mean, 58% of the routes he ran, they were throwing to him. They're throwing his way. So, but it's interesting being around these parts, being in the building, being around the Chiefs locker room, because this is not something I think you always see, but this is a very unselfish group offensively. I remember a couple weeks back, Tyquan Thornton was one of their heroes from the first early games. They were throwing the ball downfield to him. He was making big plays on Sunday Night Football against the Giants. And after a game, 2 games ago, I think it was the Lions game, he had no catches. He only had, I think, 17 snaps because the Chiefs started to get some of their wide receivers back. And we were interviewing Hollywood Brown in the locker room, and Tyquan Thornton kind of chimed in and was cheering on his teammate as it went. And these guys really do cheer for each other when it comes to the receiving room. They're unselfish. They like when each other succeeds. We heard from Patrick Mahomes earlier this week that there was actually a particular play that they haven't got quite into running yet, but the receiver switched responsibilities because one of his buddies wanted to get his other buddy the touchdown, and because he already gotten his stats for the game. So it's very unique here because, I think it's sort of one of those mindsets where it's, if you win, the pie is big enough for everybody. And they really bought into that this year. It's a very close-knit receiver room, and that's helped because now that they've gotten healthy and now that Rashee Rice is getting 10 targets on 16 pass routes, that is going to be – there's only one football. There's only so much it can go around. But these guys, as long as they're winning, as long as they're succeeding, seem to be totally fine with that. And I think that's one of the big things for them is Mahomes still tries to spread the ball around, and these receivers still want, to help the team win. But as long as it's getting the thing done, they're happy, and that's what's happened so far, and it's been a pretty good mix for the Chiefs.
Do you feel like Mahomes makes everything right? I get that, but are we at a place where Veach maybe doesn't get enough credit for the way the roster's been constructed? Because obviously having Mahomes is what you want, but you got to pay. You got to pay for some of the other big name guys on there. To me, he's done a really good job of being able to keep guys that fit the narrative of what they want to do over a period of time so that you're never scrambling to have to fix things.
Yeah, I think what's fascinating about the Chiefs is they've gone to 3 straight Super Bowls, and yet the coaching staffs that get poached for the coaching talent have been like the Eagles and the Ravens. And so much in this building has been continuity. And I actually wrote a story here about a month ago about what's so sort of unique about this setup is that Brett Veach has been with Andy Reid going back to the Eagles days. So he understands what he looks for. He understands the type of talent that he wants and what fits his system. And now he's been with Steve Spagnuolo a while. So, there was a scene that they kind of talked about in the draft room, which was second round was coming up. Brett Veach pulls Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, out of the room and into his office and says, "Hey, here's who's on the top of our draft board. Who do you prefer? Who would you like here?" And so I think so much of it is getting guys that fit. Like certain guys don't fit with Steve Spagnuolo's scheme. But Brett Veach doesn't get those guys. They collaborate here, and I think they think one of their secret sauces is not only do they have an eye for talent, and you're talking about assistant GMs like Mike Bradway. In the past, it's now some GMs and assistant GMs out there that like Mike Borgonzi now is with the Tennessee Titans. He's the GM for them. So they have an eye for talent, but they also are cohesive when it comes to the coaching staff and having these guys work together and figure out what fits best for the Chiefs in these scenarios. So yeah, I mean, I think that all of that comes together, and I think Brett Veach has done a good job. Now, they are doing something that basically nobody else is doing, which is they are paying their own guys. Like they paid Trey Smith record guard money. They paid Creed Humphrey record center money. Patrick Mahomes is getting paid well. Travis Kelce is the highest paid tight end. Harrison Butker is the highest paid kicker. Chris Jones is the highest paid defensive tackle. I mean, you go down the line, like they get guys in their system, and if they believe in them and trust in them and keep them in the building, they pay them up. So this really, I mean, it's kind of like a fantasy football term or something. Like this really is a stars and scrubs roster for the Chiefs. And a lot of what they've kept going is they've gotten guys in the building they like, and they've taken care of them. And so that requires that you got to draft and you got to get some cheap guys on the roster too. And the Chiefs have done pretty well with that as well. If you look up and down their roster and what they've done the last few years here.
Is Spags a guy that can afford to wait for the perfect job opening, or is he a guy that has just decided he likes where he's at? He likes calling defense, because some guys are like that. We've seen head coaches that just decide they like being coordinators. What is the deal with Spags?
Yeah, so he wants another shot. He would love to have another shot, be head coach. And I think part of that is just a sour taste because he got the St. Louis Rams job and it did not succeed there, did not go well. And for whatever reason, he hasn't got another shot at the NFL level. His problem, I think, is part of what has been a lot of coaches' problems in the NFL is that, he's getting older. He's in his mid-60s. And that's a guy that if you are trying to build up a roster or, hey, give this guy a shot to see what he can do, some people are worried about the long term of what potentially you could have instead of just, hey, can this guy get things pointed in the right direction and give you 5 really good years? So I know talking with Steve that he would love another chance at an NFL gig. We'll see if his name pops up here in the offseason again to potentially have another NFL gig. But right now, I mean, it's a perfect marriage right now with him and Andy Reid. And Andy Reid loves the offensive side, and obviously he always talks about the 51% of the vote. He gets the 51% of the vote for the offensive stuff, but he really does leave Steve Spagnuolo to do the defense and to trust him to do all those things. And because of what Steve has accomplished in Kansas City, I would think that Spagnuolo has a great shot of landing in the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a coordinator, which is something that basically I don't think anybody else has done. And so that's a really good position to be in. And obviously, he's had the success with Kansas City and loves working with Andy Reid and getting the freedom to do what he does. I think he'd love another shot, but if it doesn't work out, he still might find himself in the Hall of Fame, which is a pretty good position to be in as well.
Not a bad spot to be.
Yeah.
They've got big name talent on all 3 levels of the defense. I'm thinking with McDuffie in the secondary, I was looking today at the depth chart, maybe some guys that people haven't heard playing next to McDuffie, but that secondary is humming right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that's sort of the secret weapon the Chiefs have is that between Steve Spagnuolo, who has a defensive backs, background, and then Dave Merritt, who is their defensive backs coach, they just have this system of getting young guys in and turning them into players. And yeah, Trent McDuffie is the guy that most people know about, but Jalen Watson was a 7th-round pick for them 4 years ago. He's playing great football right now. They traded up to get Noah Williams. I talked about that meeting in Brett Veach's office during the draft day, and that was one of the guys on their list. And they actually traded back up to get him because the Chiefs felt like that was one of the last true outside corners that they could take. Some other guys were good, but slot players maybe limited to having that particular position. Noah Williams has been great for them. He's played with physicality, and some of his Pro Football Focus grades, are through the roof, and he's really contributed well. So yeah, you have all those guys, and then the back end. I mean, one of the big questions this offseason for the defense for the Chiefs was they lost Justin Reed in free agency, and he'd been a vocal leader on the back end. What were they going to do to not have him back there? And Brian Cook, 2022 draft pick, just like Jalen Watson in the 2nd round. He's taken a huge leap forward this year, and that's been big for them. I mean, they have these guys progress, and Jaden Hicks was a 4th-round pick a year ago. He's progressed. And so they have Shamari Connor, who's kind of that hybrid type of player. He comes down charging downhill. He's great making tackles and meeting you at the line of scrimmage and stopping the run game in its tracks in that way, and can also play some coverage for you, play some safety. So they just have guys develop there. And, I kind of think of it like, the 49ers have this cheat code with Shanahan out there where no matter what quarterback he likes, he turns them into gold. It's like, well, that's a nice thing to have. That's really what the Chiefs have with their secondary. And it's why Dave Merritt, Chiefs defensive backs coach, should get a shot at being a defensive coordinator someday. But, he loves being here. He wants to wait on it. Some of his kids are, just now getting through high school. And one of them moved on to play at, I believe it's Alabama this year. So he's kind of waiting for that opportunity. But they do kind of have this magic potion they can dump on these defensive backs, and they turn into really solid NFL players. And that's been one of the things that's kept the Chiefs afloat, even when they haven't spent big at that particular position.
The injuries for Washington have piled up this year. I know you mentioned earlier that the Chiefs have been pretty clean in that regard. It's because it's a Monday night game. Obviously, we've still got almost 4 days to go here. But what will the injury report look like for the Chiefs come Monday, do you think?
Yeah, so they lost defensive tackle Omar Norman a lot last week, their second-round pick. He kind of gave them some pass rush juice, but he suffered a torn ACL. So they're going to be thin on the defensive tackle side. That is particularly one thing potentially with the Chiefs that you look at statistically. They're not amazing stopping the run, but what happens to other teams here is they get behind. Right. If you get behind against the Chiefs, you have to throw. If you become one-dimensional, then Spagnuolo's got all these blitzes he sends at you. They come from all different directions. The Chiefs, if you become one-dimensional against the Chiefs defense, you really are in for a long day. So the last two games especially, the Chiefs have gotten themselves in that scenario. It's really helped out. But that is something, if you remain patient with the run, the Chiefs, they've allowed yards before contact. They've allowed a little bit of yards after contact. And so you can sort of get after the defensive front, look for them to potentially pursue a defensive tackle before the trade deadline here coming up in a couple weeks. But outside of that, pretty healthy overall. The one to watch, I mentioned Trey Smith earlier, the Chiefs right guard, who they paid the most money to any guard in the NFL. He had his back lock up on him last week against the Raiders, and so sat most of that game. He's missed practice 2 days this week, so I actually would anticipate he's probably not going to play. Filling in for him would be Mike Caliendo, who was their left guard a season ago when they had to kind of do all those musical chairs to fill in at left tackle. So he played really well last week, but he had some rough moments at the end of the season last year, and that included the Super Bowl against the Eagles where they really did pick on him. The only other one to kind of watch for here is Kareem Hunt. He's a super short yardage specialist for the Chiefs. He has knee and ankle injuries. He's back at practice today. I'd anticipate he'd play, but he would be one to at least watch for on game day to see if he gets the go-ahead or not.
Trey Smith, one of the unbelievable draft steals of recent memory. Also, Kareem Hunt's also interesting. Bounced around a bunch. Funny how some guys just fit places, right? Bounced around, didn't really get that much success, I think, about his time in Cleveland. Then back to the Chiefs and seems to have found his niche again there. Do we know anything about the rookie left tackle?
Yeah, actually, Andy Reid gave a little bit of an update on Josh Simmons earlier this week. They finally got to confirm that it was a family situation he's dealing with. He will not be back this week. He's been away from the team, remains away from the team. But the Chiefs at least, and Andy Reid at least kind of gave a little bit of an update to say there's been communication between the team and Josh. He's been open with them about it. So I think, this is past the Commanders, obviously, but for the Chiefs, if you're looking at this, they could have put Josh on the non-football injury list, which would require him to be out 4 weeks, and they have not done that yet. So, again, you can't say anything definitively with that, but the fact they haven't done that, to me, kind of speaks to their mindset. The Chiefs have the Commanders this week. They play at the Bills, and then they have a bye week after that. So, if you're looking at the schedule and looking for potentially when a window might be for him to come back, you would think the week after the bye week, potentially I'd give him 3 more weeks to deal with his family situation, but then also give, him time to come back and have a little bit of a ramp up period to get back with the team. But like I said, they're not cooperating, and they were communicating with Josh Simmons right now. And obviously he's taking care of some sort of family matter back in California. But the encouraging update yesterday was just that Andy Reid spoke more about it. And it sure seems like a return this year is something that could be on the table for the Chiefs.
All right, Jesse, if Dan Quinn came up to you and said, hey, what's the secret to beating the Chiefs on Monday night? You tell him what?
Well, you're going to get me in trouble. I'm in the building right now, right? They probably got the cameras on me so that they know. Well, hopefully we'll start with this so that I don't get in trouble here in the Chiefs building. Hopefully Dan Quinn has other places to go to be able to take advantage of certain matchups. But, I would start I would start with the run game for the Commanders offense. Again, it's hard to do against the Chiefs because you fall behind. But I do think if you continue to work at it, the defensive tackles for the Chiefs, it's hard for them to hold up in the run game, and now they're minus another body. So I would start with that and say if you can remain committed to that and keep the score in check, that's something you can wear down. The Chiefs, I mean, their linebackers fly downhill. Nick Bolton is great at stopping the run. Their secondary guys fly downhill. But if they're making tackles, that's 4 or 5 yards down, 4 or 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. And sometimes you can kind of grind your way against them. The biggest thing for the Chiefs is they try to eliminate explosive plays. They've done a good job of that this year. But if you can avoid mistakes, you can get 5 to 6. You can get 5 to 6 and can continually do that. The other thing for the Chiefs is defensively, they have really struggled. You go back to the opener against play action and sometimes under center run or under center plays as well. But I talked about that free flowing nature. They really do get downhill with that. You can put them in conflict if you go play action against them. And like I said, Justin Herbert kind of put a masterclass on that in that first game in Brazil for the Chiefs when going that. Against their offense right now, it's really difficult. I'm just going to be honest. Like the last 2 weeks, they've had everything rolling. I think the thing you want to look at is I do think the Chiefs have been a little bit fortunate that they have only had 2 giveaways so far this year. And one was a tipped pass off of the hands of Travis Kelce against the Eagles, and one was the pick six that basically lost them the game against the Jaguars. But you go back to the film last week, and Patrick Mahomes threw it twice into danger. One could have been a pick six for the Raiders, and it was dropped. I do think the Chiefs have been a little bit fortunate when it comes to turnovers. And Mahomes is playing more free. He's playing more comfortable this year. But a couple of times when you've had dropping defensive tackles go into lanes that he wasn't expecting, he's throwing the ball to the hands of the other team. So it's probably going to be big plays. It's probably going to be plays where you just get him for a moment. Otherwise, this Chiefs offense has been going 10 plays, 11 plays, 12 plays to a touchdown. They scored touchdowns on their first 4 drives last week. So it's going to be tough. It'll be very difficult. But I do think that if you can get him on 1 or 2 plays, you have the potential to change the game. We saw the Jaguars do that a couple weeks ago.
Jesse, I wrap these things up with a little 5-leg parlay. I hope you'd help me out with it.
Here we go.
Mahomes over under 2.5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean that seems about right. I mean, I think the problem to go under on that is that right now they're doing the pop passes, the quick look, the guy comes in motion and I just throw it to you and then it's a touchdown. Oh, that's a passing touchdown for Patrick Mahomes. So he's been a really good fantasy player lately for teams, but I guess I'll go over, but I think that 2.5 number is about right. But that's probably figuring in that one of those is kind of a design run play that gets him a touchdown anyway.
Kelce 4.5 receptions.
I'll go under. I think they're going to ramp up Rashee Rice more this week. He did not have that many snaps last week, and they should continue to ramp him up. And, Kelce had to be a primary option for them last year when they had all the receiver injuries. He doesn't really have to be that for them anymore. And if you look at his snap count, it's been kind of decreasing lately as well, which is keeping him pressure. It's keeping other bodies in there and allowing the Chiefs to play 3 receivers more often too. So I'd go under on that one.
I thought this was an interesting one, but the escalator on it was so huge that I figured why not. Over under a half for basically, does Pacheco fumble or not fumble? I thought that was interesting. Has he had a fumbling problem?
He has not fumbled this year. I mentioned the 2 giveaways for the Chiefs. The Chiefs running backs have not lost a fumble this year. So I guess I would go with the under, but I just told you earlier, I think the Chiefs have been a little bit fortunate. They had a receiver fumble last week they recovered. There was the game against the Giants where Patrick Mahomes threw the ball backwards and then he somehow wrangled it away from a defensive tackle at the last minute and they didn't count it as a fumble and lost possession. So there have been some bounces that have gone the Chiefs' way. I could see Pacheco getting a few more carries in this game, especially if Kareem Hunt is not fully healthy, and that would make sense. But I guess the over-under on any game for a fumble would probably be under. But if the Chiefs did have some of that come back to them, then this game could be the potential for that.
Rashee Rice, 67.5 receiving yards.
Man, they love him. I'll go over. I can't tell you how high the people in this building are about Rashee Rice. They think he is amazing. And you saw last week too, he caught a touchdown in the end zone. It was a fade route. Talked to him about that. And he said that he basically went up to Mahomes in the offseason and said, hey, I was a fade guy in college. I'm ready to do this. So they worked on it all offseason. And all of a sudden, part of the route tree is opened up. Part of these plays are opened up for him that potentially weren't opened up for him even last year when he was off to such a great start. So I think that number last week was just because he didn't get that many plays. And like I said, he ran 16 routes according to Next Gen Stats and had 10 targets. So you multiply that out a little bit. I think you go over on that yardage total.
And finally, Worthy 3.5 rushing yards.
I would go under because they have handed it to him a couple times this year. He's broken off big runs at times this year, but they also sometimes have him run in front of Patrick, as I talked about. So when he runs in front of Patrick, it's a pass. It's not a run. So I'll keep it on the under on that one, but they've utilized that play before. They did it when his first game back and got a big run off of it. You're basically asking if he's going to get one of those runs because he usually gets more than 4 yards when he does. But I'll say if he has one of those, that the Chiefs will have him run in front of Patrick, and it'll be a pass and not a run.
That sounds great. Jesse, this was fantastic, man. I appreciate you. You can catch all of Jesse's work on The Athletic. What do you got coming up this why, for The Athletic? Anything new coming up?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll have a little bit of a story coming up next week about the Chiefs. Like I said, they're a close-knit group, and they have a new 3-letter motto that they're kind of using around the facility here. So we'll write more about that and where it was born and how kind of it started as an offensive thing, and now it's become kind of a whole team thing. But this is sort of a story of the Chiefs this year, which is this is a really close-knit group, and this is a group that's come together and seems to really cheer for each other. And that's not something you always find in an NFL locker room. So we'll have that coming up. And then obviously, all the other stuff is coming up with Monday Night Football because the Chiefs, once again, they'll be prime time. And we'll see how Washington sort of figures into that come Monday and how they can perform against the Chiefs as well.
What's the weather supposed to be like on Monday night? Do you know?
Well, we've gotten into the point here that's around mid-50s, but I saw a rain chance in the forecast. So we'll see how much that materializes. But if not, it should be pretty good football night, mid-50s. And that's kind of what you want for this time of year.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Jesse, thank you, man. This was great. I appreciate you.
All right. Thanks so much.